This is Ringler Radio, where you get all the latest news and information about structured settlements from Ringler Associates, the first name in structured settlements, helping injured people and their families since 1975. Ringler Radio is made possible in part by Allstate, American General, John Hancock, Liberty Mutual, MetLife, Mutual of Omaha, New York Life, Pacific Life, and Prudential. Now join Ringler Radio host Larry Cohen.
Well, hello and welcome to Ringler Radio, everyone. I'm Larry Cohen, the head of Ringler Associates Northeast Operations, and we're certainly glad you could join us again today. Well, a lawsuit filed against General Motors by a Georgia woman who was left permanently and completely blind in her left eye by an exploding airbag in her car is believed to have triggered GM's recall of 33,000 Chevrolet Cruze sedans in North America. The airbag at the center of the case was manufactured by Takata Corporation, the world's second-largest supplier of automotive parts. And to date, 14 million vehicles with Takata-manufactured airbags have been recalled due to the defect. So today on Ringler Radio, we'll be discussing the airbag recall and litigation surrounding defective airbags. Joining me today as my co-host is my friend and Ringler colleague from New Orleans, Louisiana, Keith Christie. Keith has over 30 years of insurance and structured settlement experience, extensive training in all areas of policies, procedures, and systems, and he's been around doing this for quite a while. So, Keith, again, welcome to Ringler Radio. Great to have you as our co-host.
Thank you very much.
And our special guest today is attorney Cole Portis from the law firm Beasley Allen in Montgomery, Alabama. Cole serves as section head of the product liability personal injury section, and he represents plaintiffs, often those who have suffered terrible losses, and severely injured children and others. Cole, you've had so much experience with a lot of tragedy helping those folks. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks again for joining us.
Well, it's good to be here. I appreciate y'all inviting me.
Terrific. So, Cole, give us some background here. Airbags have been in these automobiles for quite some time now, and it's surprising, I think, to learn about the recall of defective airbags for a lot of folks. What exactly happened to those airbags, and what was causing all of this problem with the injury and death that these airbag deficiencies were causing? What was it all about?
Well, Larry, as you know, this issue of exploding airbags has been in the press quite a bit, and I think it's important for the listeners to understand a little bit about the fact that airbags contain a component which is called an inflator. And really what an inflator is, it's a metal canister that contains a chemical propellant. And that heats up literally in milliseconds after a crash, and it creates a gas that rapidly expands this airbag, which you want it to do. I mean, they had to get the manufacturers had to determine how to get these airbags to deploy very quickly, with enough force to deploy the airbag, but obviously not with too much force to hurt someone because of the airbag being deployed. And so this propellant is stored in the inflator as a powder compressed into little bitty wafers. I don't know how else to explain it except they are called wafers, and I'm sure we've all eaten little wafers, but these powders are in small little wafers. And because the propellant is explosive, it must be carefully processed and stored to keep it stable. And so early on in the 2000, Takata, who is the manufacturer of these exploding airbags that are occurring not only in General Motors vehicles, not only in Honda vehicles, but in BMW, in Ford, Nissan, Infiniti, and other manufacturers. Takata supplies these airbags to these manufacturers, and Takata claimed that some of these wafers that I was talking about were produced with inadequate compaction force, or some others may have been exposed to some excessive moisture, and as a result, these airbag inflators have failed and caused this explosion of the airbags, which causes all sorts of parts from the airbags to be deployed, not only the airbag, but also these metal shrapnel pieces to be deployed and to just injure and severely injure and kill people who are involved in these wrecks.
So what kind of injuries do you see that are coming from these airbag explosions?
Well, as you can imagine, I mean, just imagine a bomb exploding with shrapnel. And in this particular case, usually what happens in a frontal collision is that the driver or the passenger, once they're involved in this frontal collision, they move forward. That's the direction they move. The airbag is moving at the same time toward them. And so generally what you see is when the shrapnel also explodes with these exploding airbags, most of the injuries are in and around the head of the people. So a lot of the shrapnels you could see embedded in the brain itself or embedded into eyes, or certainly causing cuts and scrapes all along the facial areas. And also the neck area, I should include that as well.
And just to be clear, these airbags aren't deploying just when the car is sitting there by some defect. It's still occurring with a collision, correct?
Yes. I mean, I think yes and no. And I say yes in the sense that every not only lawsuit or incident that I have read about relating to exploding airbags and shrapnel being released has been as a result of low-speed impact collisions. But it's certainly possible, and we've seen in other instances where airbags will deploy on their own for various and sundry reasons, but that has not been the target of this particular litigation.
I hear you. So your firm, Beasley Allen, has filed a lawsuit on behalf of a lot of the Honda owners affected by Takata airbags.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
Right.
Tell us about that suit briefly.
Yeah, that particular suit, we've done a number of things, but that particular suit has to do with the loss of the value of someone's vehicle. Here you've got these particular vehicles, specifically these Honda vehicles, that have potentially defective airbags in them, and so people aren't as likely to buy them, so the value of the vehicle is not as much as what it should be with a properly working airbag. And also because of all the information that is out there now on the exploding airbags, the value of these vehicles is less. Nobody wants to purchase a vehicle that has a poor safety system in it, and specifically an airbag that doesn't work. So that's what that case is about. Sure. And then there are other cases pending where there are personal injuries and deaths related to the explosion of these airbags.
Sure.
Cole, this is Keith Christie. I wanted to ask you, there's been 10 million vehicles that's been recalled due to this situation. And taking a look at Honda specifically and Takata, did they know about these defects in these vehicles?
It's interesting when you look back at really the timeline, and we're able to put some of these pieces together, especially now that the press, the New York Times, has done a great job of gathering information, and obviously the congressional committees have been involved with handling and gathering information about what's been going on. But it appears that starting in 2004, Honda began receiving complaints of airbag inflator ruptures. But it wasn't until 2008 that Honda issued its first recall, and even then they only issued a recall for 4,000 vehicles, and they found that the propellant may have been improperly handled during the assembly. And so what's interesting is you have those 4,000 vehicles recalled in 2008, but then in 2009 and again in 2010, Honda recalled another 830,000 vehicles where they said that the propellant that was used in these particular wafers was the process used to put them together was improper, and so they recalled 830,000 vehicles. In 2011, they issued another recall of $1.1 million vehicles, and then you saw another recall in 2012, 2013, and 2014, and so at this point, all of a sudden you not only have Honda, but you have BMW, you have Honda, you have Mazda, you have Nissan, you have Toyota, who have recalled these vehicles. And I think up to this point in time, and my numbers may be wrong, but I think as Larry mentioned earlier, that more than 10 million vehicles have been recalled worldwide to fix such problems. All of this information has been known, and some of the lawsuit, there was one lawsuit that was filed, and the next day it was settled, and that information was never ever supplied to NHTSA, the governmental agency that oversees recalls. And under the law, what's called the TREAD Act, that information is supposed to be supplied. So they've known they've had these problems since 2004. Honda was aware of it, but in terms of the exposure to the public, it hadn't been until obviously toward the end of 2014.
Sounds like a lot of confidential clauses being put into some of these settlement agreements.
Yeah, I mean, that occurs quite often, unfortunately.
Well, Cole, the auto industry also took a recent hit with the ignition switch recall. So coupled with the airbags and other items that we've seen, are we seeing a common trend here in the automobile industry? So what are you finding out there? Is it a lack of lessons learned from past issues? Is there a failure of the industry to disclose warnings and other information to consumers? What's happening in the auto industry?
I wish I could tell you in terms of what's going on, but it's again, as Solomon would say in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun, and that's true really in the automotive industry as well. And I've been involved in product litigation since 1990, and throughout that process, we have seen kind of the same thing happening over and over again. You saw it obviously with the Pinto, you saw it with side saddle gas tanks on GM pickups, and we saw it in the Toyota case with the sudden unintended acceleration, which we were involved in, and then obviously being heavily involved in the GM ignition switch. All that said is a lot of times it's just a matter of cutting corners. A lot of times it's a matter of saving a buck here or saving a buck there, and at the end of the day, obviously, it's the public that doesn't know any of this, isn't aware of any of these issues, and they're not addressed quickly, and they're not properly addressed by the automotive manufacturers for a variety of reasons, and one of them being cost. And then when something actually comes into the public, like you had in the General Motors ignition switch issue, then everybody goes, "Wow, how in the world can this happen? How did this happen?" And then you have a company like GM, and in this case Honda, who publicly take a stance of being apologetic. We're sorry, we did wrong, we should be better. Toyota did the same thing in the sudden unintended acceleration when they testified before Congress and said, "We're sorry, we apologize, we didn't do things right." Maybe one day they'll learn and they'll start doing things right. But I don't know when that day will be.
Well, it sounds like a lot of apologies, but not many folks in the industry with the wisdom of Solomon, as you say. I think we need a little more help there.
On the same level, what we're just discussing, with the aspect of the public and the federal regulators, what does this mean for Honda and Takata with regard to the concealment of these issues?
Here's the frustrating part, specifically on Takata and Honda and these other manufacturers that I listed earlier. Back in December, Takata has been put up barriers at each and every stop, and in fact, they were asked to recall all of the vehicles, and Takata says, well, based on the information we have, it's really just in the humid and hot areas where this seems to be the problem. Well, that's one, that wasn't true, but they only were agreeing to recall in a specific area. It was Honda, it was Nissan that came out and said, no, we're going to do, and Ford, we're going to do a worldwide recall on all of these particular airbags, but Takata always fought that. The manufacturers of these cars back in December got together and said, hey, listen, we need to hire an independent company to come and assess what's going on because Takata has come up with 6 or 7 reasons why these airbags are exploding and hurting and killing people, and nobody is really coming up with the root cause. And so we want to hire this other company. And so we want to hire an independent company to come in and find the root cause of why these airbags are exploding. Well, here we are, February 17th, and again, the car company said they were going to do it back in December. We're February 17th, and as far as I know, I read in the Wall Street Journal this morning that the car companies still have not hired anyone to look into why these airbags are exploding. And that's a concern. I mean, what are they waiting on? What are they doing? I mean, why aren't they looking into it themselves? I mean, they've got engineers, they've got good folks who work for them. They have access to every document, and it's very frustrating and upsetting to me as a consumer, and certainly to me who represents people, to know that these car companies say we don't even know the root cause of what's causing these airbags to explode.
Well, you know what? That's why folks like yourself hopefully open up some of those doors that have been closed and get some of that information out so the public can learn and protect themselves from some of these instances of neglect. Let's take a quick break right now, and let's come back in a minute right here on Ringler Radio with our guest, Cole Portis from Beasley Allen law firm down in Alabama, and my special co-host, Keith Christie. We'll be right back.
This is Ringler Radio from Ringler Associates, the leader in the structured settlements profession nationwide. Did you know that Ringler is involved in a third of all structured settlement cases in the country? Ringler Associates works with all the parties in a lawsuit settlement to find the best possible financial solution for the people involved. There's a Ringler Associate in all the major cities of the U.S. No one has more experience than a Ringler Associate. Check out our new website at www.ringlerassociates.com for the best information for claimants, legal professionals, and claims personnel, and to find the Ringler Associate nearest you. When it's your interest at stake in a lawsuit settlement, you want only the best financial plan. You can count on Ringler Associates to structure a customized plan that meets the needs of you and your family for the future. Visit ringlerassociates.com to learn more.
Welcome back to Ringler Radio. Glad you could join us. I'm your host, Larry Cohen, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Keith Christie from New Orleans, Louisiana, and our special guest, attorney Cole Portis from the Beasley Allen law firm. Cole, and I know it's kind of a broad question, but what do you see going on in the future of this litigation? Where is litigation headed in the whole area of the airbag?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think really what you're going to see is this going to be moving forward on a couple of fronts. You're going to have some of the fronts being in individual lawsuits that have been filed, that are pending, that are where folks are just going to receive a number of documents. They're going to be able to take testimony of witnesses, and that'll happen in individual cases. And then you've got what's called a multi-district litigation, where a judge will oversee, and all of these documents will be presented to this MDL group, and they'll go through them, and they'll do an excellent job of going through them, and also taking depositions and trying to find out the truth in terms of what's going on, what do you know, what's the root cause, what are the damages, and going through all of those issues. So there are going to be two fronts going on: individual lawsuits as well as this MDL and these class action lawsuits related to the loss of value of vehicles. So those two fronts will be moving forward in the near future.
Well, Cole, let me ask you a question. How will these airbag defects, affect future regulations, as well as, how they're manufactured and how the federal regulators will inspect them?
Well, here's the deal. It's already affected them in this sense. I went up to Congress to listen to the GM ignition switch hearings that went on to find out what was going on with the GM ignition switches, who knew what when. Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, came up and testified, along with the head of NHTSA, came up and testified, and it was interesting to listen to the head of NHTSA and goes, look, y'all have to understand, we are a very small regulatory agency. We depend upon the automotive manufacturers to supply information to us. And, we'll ask questions, but we've got to receive that information truthfully from automotive companies. I think that was somewhat of an eye-opener, knowing that really these car companies are practically self-regulating rather than governmentally regulating. Even all these tests that are run to say that this car meets all the federal motor vehicle safety standards, all of those are tests that are done by automotive companies. The government doesn't do those tests. The automotive companies do those tests, and they certify to the federal government this car meets the standards. So what has occurred since those particular congressional hearings, and now with Takata, is you've already seen an increase in NHTSA and in terms of the funding that is going to be given to NHTSA. Will that make them a stronger regulatory agency? Probably. Is all of this on their radar right now? Yes. Is there an emphasis on automotive companies to ensure that safe cars are being produced? Yes, I think all of that is true right now. The question is, what's going to happen in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 10 years when people forget about the exploding airbags, when people forget about the fact that ignition switch goes from the on to the off position, you lose power steering, power brakes, and your airbags don't they don't engage. What's going to happen then? Are we just going to fall back into the same attitude that we were in beforehand? If so, then that's going to be a problem, and you're just going to see another Takata airbag, General Motors ignition switch, Toyota sudden unintended acceleration over and over and over again.
Well, Cole, as we wind this down, what you've just said about the self-regulation, theoretically anyway, of the auto industry, it reminds us of how big pharmaceutical companies tend to fund the research, fund the reports and studies done that talk about the efficacy of drugs they manufacture. So we've got this problem in America, it seems, that the government doesn't have either the staff or the expertise or the money to really provide the oversight and the direction to some of these big industries where, if they're not looked at closely, they can cause serious problems. Where do you see it going? How are we going to protect consumers in America? Where's the wake-up call?
Look, I think at the end of the day, I pray that our country is producing people with integrity that ultimately will be in positions, and there'll be people of integrity, and they will never take the shortcut. I think reality, though, is that you're going to have a governmental component. You're going to have a legal component of lawyers who are going to file these claims, who are going to hold automotive manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers accountable for when they make not only negligence but intentional problems. They create these problems, and as a result, the consumer is injured himself or herself, and as a result, we need to ensure. Look, we need to ensure that as lawyers that we proceed with integrity. We need to ensure that we elect folks in Congress who have integrity, and I hope that companies, when they hire a CEO, will hire people of integrity as well.
Well, that's well said, Cole, and I think Keith and I both have seen in various cases we've handled how sometimes the government, although they might mean well, they just don't have the expertise, the staff, and in many cases the budget to do what they need to do, whether it's in Medicare compliance or whether it's in approving Medicare set-aside deals. Or there's so many things where the government needs to work in concert with industry and with folks like you. So, what it really comes down to, and Keith and I have said it many times, if it wasn't for the plaintiff bar out there, for lawyers who are really pursuing some of these areas of concern and trying to promote a better standard, we'd be in a much tougher place than we are right now. So we want to thank you for what you're doing out there, especially in this airbag case and some of the other things you've done, and keep fighting that good fight to keep us all safe.
I express Larry's opinion too.
I appreciate that. I'm blessed to do what I do, and I've been unbelievably blessed to represent some folks and to make a difference in our country.
Terrific. So, Cole, if someone wanted to talk to you or get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Sure. They could either call me at 334-269-2343, or they can email me at cole.portis@beasleyallen.com.
Terrific. And Keith, how about yourself? Someone wanted to get a hold of you.
They can contact me at area code 504-616-6263, or go to our website at ringlerassociates.com and look for my name as one of the associate brokers in Louisiana and in the South. So
terrific. And, if you go to that website, you not only will get that phone number and address, you'll also see a picture of Keith. That's sitting there, too, isn't it, Keith?
That's very important. Yeah.
It's very important.
That could be a scary proposition.
Well, I know. Well, go to that Ringler website. You can find all Ringler Associates on that site, including myself, and all of them around the country if you need any help with structured settlements. And I'd encourage you to do that. You could also see all of the Ringler Radio shows on that site. You can download whichever one you want. You can listen to them. We've done hundreds of them on many, many different issues. And, you can find those Ringler Radio shows also on ringlerradio.com, legaltalknetwork.com, of course, ringlerassociates.com, but you can also find them in iTunes, where you can download from iTunes right to your iPod or other device, and just at your leisure, go listen to Cole Portis talk about airbag litigation or any other subject you'd like to hear. So with that, I want to say thank you again, Cole, for being our guest. Very, very important subject, and I'm glad you were with us.
You bet. Enjoyed meeting with y'all and talking to you.
Thanks. And Keith, again, thanks for being a great co-host.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And Cole, I look forward to maybe meeting you sometime in the near future.
I hope so. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. And for all of you, the rest of you out there, go out and have a great day. Bye-bye.
The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer. Thanks for listening to Ringler Radio. With over 1 million listeners, Ringler Associates, the first name in structured settlements. Visit ringlerassociates.com today.